to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. We're joined riding shotgun tonight is Frank the Truth Holtzhauser. Is it the truth or the verse? I keep forgetting.
The verse, the truth, the voice, the curse.
You're like a
pick your poison.
You've got like a trans. You're trans nicknamed. Yeah. You're not sure which one to go with. It's whatever it is.
There's so many. I'm not sure.
Microphone issues.
Yes.
You have to understand. We ride in like. There's no like hours long prep into this show. It's like boom. I'm here. 10 minutes. Here we go. Yeah. Frank's sitting here doing stuff. He's like, oh, well, I'll ride shotgun. That's just, it's completely prompter free.
Well, I have seen you post some things in the past that I'll be doing a show tonight, and then I'll be sitting here, and pretty soon it gets to be about 5:45, and I'll go, oh, I guess there ain't no show.
Oh, well, I don't think I've ever done it like that. But
well, no, but I mean, you've posted, then, oops, something came up.
Oh, I think there was one time.
Yeah.
One time. My sister had a baby, so soon.
So but used to be when the show got over at 3:00, if I was sitting around here till 5 or 5:30, that would be amazing. But now that the show gets over at 5,
right? You're here. You're hanging out.
I'm here, and I'm sitting and listening to Airhead on that Neil Cavuto was interviewing.
Oh yeah, wasn't she a peach?
And you came just about when it was 2 minutes from being over. It was a 9-minute clip, so I was finishing listening to that, and Maddie said, "You got any guests or any?" No, not unless Frank wants to stay.
Well,
I said, okay.
The point is we're flying by the seat of our pants here. If you want to fly and see our pants with us, you can call us. The number here is 515-244-0077. I was going to start. Need to tone it down. I'm always very buoyant when I start the show, but I'm try and bring it down maybe just a little bit. I was going to kick off the show talking about the situation that occurred this week at the at Mizzou, University of Missouri, early this week, and tie that in with political correctness running amok, and how political correctness has been nothing more but the seeds of intellectual fascism in this country. And then just breaking within the past hour and a half is a huge coordinated Islamic attack in Paris right now. 60 plus people are dead. 100 hostages are taken in a theater right now. And as I was driving over, I kind of throwing out my show notes, I started thinking, what's going on in Paris tonight is really the ultimate manifestation of political correctness, because this has been perpetrated by these refugees who Europe is against all reason, all logic, welcoming in with open arms. The governments are doing this. The people of Europe don't want these people in there. They're putting, 20,000 refugees in a Swedish town of 700. Sweden is becoming the rape capital of the world because of these monsters that are coming in.
Well, would you? I think you would agree that it's being. Who's behind it? We can speculate, Obama, etc. Why he isn't, why he isn't concerned about the
I think it
refugee crisis. But it's being foisted on the people.
Exactly. It is being foisted on the people. And now, because they were sold this line that it was racist to say that you don't want these Muslims in there. It's racist that these people are terrorists. Because they've been sold this bill of goods, and they've accepted this. Now you've got what's going on right here. Dozens of people are reported. This is from CNN. And I'm going to come to a point here in just a second, but dozens of people are reported dead after a series of what appear to be coordinated attacks across Paris late Friday. A hostage situation is continuing at a concert hall. CNN will update this information as it comes in. French radio reporter Julien Pierce was inside the Bataclan Theater when gunmen entered. Two men dressed in black started shooting what he describes as AK-47s after wounding people. Yeah, described as AK-47s. And after wounded people fell to the floor, The two gunmen shot them again, execution style, he said. The two men didn't wear masks and didn't say anything. The gunfire lasted 10 to 15 minutes, sending the crowd inside the small concert hall into a screaming panic, said Pierce, who escaped. He said he saw 20 to 25 bodies laying on the floor. The hostage situation at the Bataclan continued early Saturday. There were also explosions at the Stade de France outside Paris, which was hosting a soccer game, which was attended by French President Francois Hollande. There were multiple explosions there. They were describing dismembered body parts there. Traffic on several subway lines has been interrupted following the attacks. At this hour, there is no credible or specific threat in the United States. Francois Hollande, in an address to the nation, said he had declared a state of emergency, meaning the borders will be closed. Here's the funny part. One report here. This is from the Telegraph.
That's a British.
That's the British. The London Telegraph reports that gunmen in one location started screaming "Allah Akbar" and started linking this to what's going on in Syria. What I wanted to point out throughout the whole ghastly report from CNN is that nowhere in this report do they call it a terrorist attack. Nowhere in this report do they talk about it being done by Muslim extremists, because they're even in the midst of all this continuing to carry on the politically correct line. And that's really the point that I have to make. It's like they're still sticking their head in the sand in regards to this. And make no mistake, if we let these refugees, and they're not refugees, they're invaders. They're European invaders coming from Syria. And we've had stories, and I don't know if I'd cover this story. I think maybe I had it printed out, and maybe that was the week actually that my sister's baby was born that I called off. But I had a story that was printed out, and I'll have to bring that in sometime, about how Muslim clerics in the Middle East were calling for people to move into Europe, to invade Europe, to impregnate women in Europe, so they can take it over. And they got their design set on doing the same thing in the U.S. We've had Iowa. Terry Branstad is saying, "Oh, we're going to let Syrian refugees in. We've got to open our doors." Catholic Ministries is going to start housing these people. They were doing that with people coming in from Mexico earlier this summer, and so they're going to do the same thing here. And so, I don't know. Frank, why don't you jump in with a comment or two here? I'm rambling.
I wouldn't say every refugee is a potential terrorist, but clearly they're using this as a way to infiltrate Europe.
Right. It's a way to invade Europe. 80% of those people coming in are men of military fighting age. It's like, if Europe said, okay, we'll let refugees in, but it has to be women and children first, and then after like a year, then men can come in. Right. Then I think you would probably have this outcry.
Well, you need to look at the ratio of what's being sent or what's being pushed out of Syria.
Right.
But I guess I would just well, go ahead. I had a thought and I lost my thought there a second.
I know. I'm sleepy today, so my thought processes are kind of weird as well. But what we were talking about earlier about how this has been foisted on the European people, especially in Germany, where politicians are calling now for compulsory labor to force Germans to serve migrants. You got your thought?
Well, yeah, you mentioned Germany, and I was obviously thinking about Angela Merkel.
Lovely woman.
The prime minister, yes. She announced several years ago that multiculturalism was dead, or was, it was a detriment to Germany.
That's right. You're absolutely right. She did.
And so these people know, France knows, Germany knows, Britain knows that this is a no-win situation, but yet it's being somehow foisted on the citizenry. Mm-hmm. And now they're paying the price for it.
They are.
This attack, they're paying the price for it.
And our media will still not even call this a terrorist attack. Drudge calls it a terrorist attack, but CNN's not going to call it a terrorist attack. I'm sure. I wonder
Workplace
if
violence.
Let's check MSNBC. What are they going to say?
Yeah.
They're going to say right-wing Christians.
Yeah.
Nope. Headline: Deadly attack in Paris. Let's read the MSNBC version of the story.
If right-wing Christians is associated with that story, that's...
We've got to handle these people with kid gloves. That's the thing. We've got to handle these muzzies. No, they actually did call it a terrorist attack. Here we go.
Okay.
Let's see. At least 35 people were killed after explosions and shootings rocked Paris Friday night, prompting the French president to declare a state of emergency and seal the country's borders. Police in Paris told NBC News that several people had been shot at a restaurant in the 10th arrondissement in Paris. I'm sure I'm butchering that name, and I apologize. The Associated Press reported that there were fatalities at the nearby Bataclan Theater, where about 100 hostages were being held. So here's what they call it a terrorist attack. Terrorist attacks of an unprecedented magnitude are in play in Paris. It's horror, Holland said. So they only call it a terrorist attack when they're quoting somebody.
Okay, now who's Mitterrand?
Francois Mitterrand was a former French president.
Okay, so we have a new one?
We've had Holland for
change.
a few years now.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. I guess I'm not up to, I'm not in the loop.
Well, that's all right. Oh, the story that I wanted to cover, where did that go? Yeah. So yeah, there were a few zingers that I found earlier today that I wanted to cover, but they seem pretty relevant given what's going on. So German police calls for compulsory labor to force Germans to service migrants. A German parliament member has called for introducing a compulsory labor program under which young Germans would be forced to spend a year in the service of migrants. Focus.de reports that CDU MP Eckhard Rehberg provoked heated discussion when he suggested that Germany's inability to cope with the migrant influx could be solved by making university graduates commit to a year of social service. He said, "We need compulsory service. We have no other way to manage the mass of refugees and their integration," said Rehberg, adding that graduates should be given the choice of 1 year military service or 1 year social service. So this is slave labor. They want to turn their whole country into a slave labor camp to service these people who are invading.
Well, you come in and you were talking about some of the stories you might want to reference, and we happen to talk about this story this week. But this is the, I don't know, this is how crazy this world is. In the United States, we have students in Missouri college who allege that the president of the college didn't adequately
he didn't adequately respond when members of the student 1950 group blocked his car during a parade, and then one of the students slapped the car, and then they claimed that the car hit him. But they listed a list of demands because Tom Wolf, the president of Mizzou, did not adequately comment on the situation. What is an adequate comment?
Well, now does this also pertain to the story of the swastika in feces?
Yes, that was one of the incidents that sparked this outcry of anti-racism on the campus. And it turns out, and I think I've got that story in here as well. It turns out, well, that is probably false. There was allegations of somebody, some white student, rolling up to the gay black student body president and calling him, a racial slur at one point, which couldn't be verified.
Now, what I want you to know is when I walked in here yesterday under the purple awning, somebody yelled "cracker" and "whitey" at me. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Merle Hay Mall has properly responded to that.
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
know. I don't know who done it.
Exactly.
I can't prove who yelled it at me or if it was even yelled.
It may not have even been directed at you, but you know what? It offended you so much. You're offended, and the fact that it was said at all in the presence of anybody in this city, I'm feeling that reverberation. So now I'm offended.
So
Maddie, are you offended? Maddie is so offended.
So now I need to call Merle Hay security to arrest those people, and the Merle Hay, hierarchy didn't properly respond to my request.
I agree.
So somebody's head needs to roll here because I was offended. Now, contrast that, what's going on in France right now?
Mm-hmm.
Are we living in a parallel universe? What's important and what's not important? Where is our priorities at?
Yeah. Well, here's where our priorities are at. While this is going on in France, we're teaching our children to be confused about whether they're boys and girls. We've got, let's see. No, where was that story? They took it down. Oh, you jerks. Anyway, I was going to say there was a story that was on Drudge just before I came over where a person who calls himself a Pastafarian, who claims that he is part of the cult that worships the flying spaghetti monster, he has won the right to have his driver's license picture taken with a colander on his head. So that's what we're fighting for in this country. We're fighting to have a colander on your head in your driver's license photo, yet Europe is burning. Europe is being destroyed right now. Here's a nice parallel to the students, the walkout day that occurred yesterday to try and get free education. Migrants sleep on the streets in protest at not having TVs in their rooms. The migrants are all ticked off in the Netherlands. Migrants in the Netherlands who previously complained about slow internet and not being given enough money to buy cigarettes are now sleeping on the streets in protest against not having televisions in their rooms. A group of around 30 refugees, I would say invaders, slept on the streets of The Hague this week because they were dissatisfied with the facilities in the emergency shelters, according to a report by NOS.NL. It's like we have this entitlement generation. Oh, and here was one as well before we go to break. Berlin police to check on we'll go to break. We'll come back with this story. You're watching Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. Stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. That's Frank Holzhauser. If you want to get in on the show, give us a call, 515-244-0077. We're covering political correctness and the manifestation that is occurring right now in France with 100 hostages taken in a theater right now, 60-plus people dead in Muslim attacks going on at this very moment. Yes, Frank.
Not being a person who is keen on swimming, and particularly in the ocean, I do occasionally watch some Shark Week, some shark shows on History, Discovery, etc. And you watch when they, what do they call it? They not chad the water, but they chum the water.
Mm-hmm.
and you get these sharks coming in a feeding frenzy. This is what's going on in the United States, and this is what's going to happen all over the United States on our college campuses. Now that blood is in the water, and we're getting rid of people that, quote unquote, so-called won't address racism or sexism issues, where our college campuses used to be a place of exchange of ideas, where we can go and talk to one another in supposedly a neutral setting and pick the best of the ideas and reject the worst of ideas.
And then in the 60s, it became this breeding ground of radical socialism. The communist infiltration occurred in the 60s, and then you had all this radicalization at that point, and now they've become just indoctrination centers.
But anywhere where we should protect speech should be our college campuses.
Absolutely, but they don't want to do that. That's the amazing thing about political correctness. It is do what we say, and anybody who has a dissenting opinion, you must be destroyed.
The video of some of this stuff that went on at Mizzou had some little short red-headed gal that supposedly is college staff. I don't know if you saw that particular video that I saw, but she's out there trying to shut down speech. And I'm saying, you and I are in I don't want to say a business, it's not our job, it's not our career, but we're in a business of speech. We're communicating right now on this microphone to other people.
Is that what's going on?
That's what's happening.
Wow.
So these people like Bradshaw, Fallon, J. Michael McCoy, whoever, we should, if anybody, should be especially sensitive to anyone who wants to restrict the free use of speech.
Right. Wasn't it the liberal movement that is all about the First Amendment? The First Amendment, and they should be. The First Amendment is a liberal device. It is one of the most radical ideas in the history of mankind, that you have the right to your opinion. You have the right to speak out without repercussions from the king or whatever government is installed. That is a radical idea in the classical sense of liberalism. That's why these people who push this political correct garbage on us, they call themselves liberals. They're not. They're totalitarian. They're authoritarians.
Well, yes, and the left should be especially sensitive to this because they want their speech heard.
And only their speech heard.
And a Christian world, a godly world, is what provides the freedom. I go up against these atheists and agnostics all the time that talk against God. But it's God. It's our form of government that God allowed to be set up that provides them the freedom.
Right. People don't realize that. They like to have this fantasy that if Jesus never existed, or if there were no Christians on the planet, I use this analogy based off of an episode of Family Guy, because Seth MacFarlane is such a naked atheist and is so disgusting. I cannot watch anything that he produces anymore because of his bigotry. But there was an episode of Family Guy, and I know I've referenced it on this show before. There was an episode of Family Guy a few years ago, maybe 5 years now, where Stewie and Brian, the baby and the dog, they go to an alternate universe where Christians don't exist. And it's like this utopian thing. Everybody is all, society is advanced to the stars. And that is such a ridiculous notion. It shows such an ignorance of history. We did not come out of the Dark Ages. We did not come out of barbarism until we had the Bible printed in the common tongue, until the Reformation. We did not have that until Christianity spread.
Well, I call it the twin sisters of the Reformation, or the twin sisters, even though they were maybe 100 years apart, technically speaking. But you had the Renaissance and the Reformation.
Right.
Both exploded on the scene of science and faith.
The thing is.
But the papacy had suppressed that, both science and faith, for darn near 1,200 years.
Sure, they'll do that. The point that I'm making, though, is that Christianity spread that renaissance in thinking, that advancement in society. I sometimes in conversations with my mom, she's like, why do you have all these poverty in Africa? How come these people have not been able to advance? It's because they don't come. If you want to look at a society that is completely devoid of God, look at Africa. Look at these jungle tribes in Brazil that are still walking around in the bush and have never seen technology. That is what happens under atheism. You want to throw away Christianity? Go ahead. You'll be like the bush people in Brazil.
Well, you have the billboards that say Christ or God, we've done plenty fine without him. Well, really? Okay. God creates this planet. He gives the rain, and it feeds us. The sun shines, and it creates photosynthesis, which allows us to breathe oxygen and live. So when God allows rain to fall on the earth, it falls on the unbeliever and the believer both.
Well, that's getting into a technical aspect.
But hang on. They get their education, they get their knowledge from God, and yet they deny God.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is without the technical aspects of creation and everything, just the understanding and the pursuit of religion has led to an increase of knowledge. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
But let's get back to what's going on in Europe. One of the story that I wanted to hit on before we went to break this is translated from a source here. Police in Berlin, well, I'll just read it. An incredible suggestion is clearly being discussed in Berlin. The Senate will authorize the police to enter private homes to house refugees, even against the will of the owner. Will there soon be police controls in order to control the vacancy of dwellings and real estate? A proposal was apparently of Berlin's governing mayor, Michael Müller, and he made that, and this was reported by BZ. I'm not sure what that source is. So they're basically saying that police are going to go into the homes in Germany, and if you've got a vacant room, you have to house a refugee. That's what they're proposing. How insane is this?
Well, I heard someone, I forget where, somewhere on the internet, somewhere on TV this week, talk about the difference between a sheriff's department and a police department. Obviously, in a sheriff's department, the people can vote people in or out.
Mm-hmm.
Police departments are generally run by the state.
Mm-hmm.
So if the state has an axe to grind against its citizenry, the first thing they're going to do to stop that is send in the police.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Christians, we're sensitive to this freedom to worship, this freedom to assemble, this right to assemble, the right to go to church, the right to worship where you see fit worshiping.
Mm-hmm.
But someday the state's going to come down on that right. So we should always, as citizens, be particularly sensitive to the activities of the state and the police.
Well, that's the whole point of at least what I do when I'm sharing this show is try and focus the Christian attention on what the state and what the police are doing.
That was part of, well, I guess maybe it was at the Freedom Summit over the weekend that I attended down at Hy-Vee Hall. I think that may be where I heard it, some speakers down there that were talking about, the difference between our sheriff's departments and our police departments, that we can vote our sheriffs are elective commodities.
Right. And there's a great candidate that will be running for Polk County Sheriff here in 2016, Dan Charleston, great constitutional candidate. So be sure when he comes up for election, be sure to go in and vote for him. He is a great guy. So yeah, if you want a good constitutional, God-fearing family sheriff, vote for Dan Charleston. Sorry, Frank.
That's fine.
What was the other point that I wanted to make here? Well, we'll just go into the charade of racism at Mizzou. This was on Natural News. Now we're finally getting down to the bottom of the delusional University of Missouri racism charade and the entire cluster of events that followed it. It now appears that the entire thing was an elaborate hoax dreamed up by the students themselves. Evidence of the hoax nature of these events is now emerging from investigations performed across the independent media. Blah, 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 blah.
You mean I made up getting called a cracker and a whitey yesterday?
You made it up. You made it up. You had soup and you wanted crackers. It turns out that the same gay black student body president who incited mass hysteria across the MU campus by posting fabricated claims of the KKK terrorizing campus and calling in the National Guard is also the person who started the entire racism ruckus by claiming somebody yelled racial slurs at him from a vehicle. What kind of man is this that he can't take being called, and not that I'm advocating it, but what kind of a man is it that is going to fall to pieces because he's called a bad word?
Hang on here. Let me give you an anecdotal thing that J. Michael McCoy said last week in talking about, you remember the incident of somebody tore a sign off of somebody's yard here in town and supposedly threw rocks at the house and supposedly some racial slurs were used or something?
It doesn't ring a bell, but okay, I'll go with it.
Well, all right. In any of these instances, there's no proof.
Right.
How do you know that the perpetrator, because they jumped to the conclusion, the Des Moines Register and Tribune jumped to the conclusion that it was racially involved, it was racism, but they had no suspect.
That is the great evil.
So how do they prove that? How do you know the person who stole the sign and threw the rocks wasn't black? And Mac McCoy jumped on that immediately because Chris Roloff was sitting in this chair and started to fight back against that a little bit. And Mac said, look, I've been a businessman all my life. And I have done things personally to draw attention to my businesses. So in other words, it's not unknown to shoot yourself in the foot for attention to your business or your cause.
That's called a false flag.
Okay. So this racism thing is fabricated.
Yes.
To draw attention to their cause, like the rape story that Rolling Stone printed about the University of Virginia. Well, when they get caught with the lie, they simply defend it by saying, well, it paints the larger narrative of the problem of rape or racism or misogyny on our college campuses.
The ends justify the means.
Any lying, murder, whatever it is, justifies, the end justifies the means.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep. You're absolutely
Even
right.
if
with
the means,
this class, yes.
Even if the means include lying, murder, cheating, stealing, whatever.
Because they have no moral foundation. And without that moral foundation, we are headed back to the dark ages. We really are. As enlightened and technologically advanced as we are at this time frame, on the space-time continuum, if we don't continue to allow God in society and kick him out, and you have the attitude that Christianity is the problem, which it's not, but you want to embrace these people, these moon-worshiping
I'm sorry, I didn't get called a cracker.
I know, and I'll stop yelling that at you from now on. It was me. This Mizzou hunger striker. What?
Are we out of time?
I don't know. We're out of time. Oh, Maddie says we're out of time. I'm sorry, I can't really hear the music, so we're gonna take a break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Here, you're watching Frankly Speaking live here on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fix them problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run Afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends, we're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. That's Frank Holzhauser. A little note about what's going on in the with the Paris situation. Unfortunately, it did suspend a 24-hour live webcast that was going on, being hosted by Al Gore. He was hosting a climate telethon live from Paris's Eiffel Tower.
So there was a bonus to this.
There was a bonus to this. It has suspended Al Gore's climate crisis broadcast there. So getting back to the morons over in Mizzou, how do you like this kid who went on the hunger strike, speaking of false flags?
Yeah.
Jonathan Butler, the University of Missouri graduate student who went on a weekend hunger strike, comes from a family worth $20 million. His father is a railroad vice president and made over $8 million last year. Butler complained about white privilege. He argued that he was oppressed. The St. Louis Today reported Jonathan Butler, a central figure in the protests at the University of Missouri, is an Omaha native and the son of a railroad vice president. Butler refused food last week in a move to force the university system's president Timothy M. Wolf from office. Wolf resigned Monday, and Butler ended his hunger strike.
You know what I have to say to that? The same thing I used to say to my daughter when she was little, and there was some food that I knew she'd like, but she was hesitant to try it because she had never tried it before.
Mm-hmm.
And if she turned her nose up at something, I'd say, oh, good, that makes more for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if old John Butler don't want to eat, I just say, good, makes more for us. I mean, have at it, buddy.
Well, it's just the hypocrisy of claiming that he's oppressed when he comes from a family worth $20 million. They've obviously done pretty well for themselves.
But again,
I would say that there probably isn't white privilege.
But again, it goes to the means.
Yep.
Justifying the ends. It doesn't make any difference if his dad is worth whatever X amount of dollars. It paints a larger narrative.
Yep. It's all a false flag operation going on. And I think you hit on this earlier, but it sets this dangerous precedent that now anybody who doesn't like anything that anybody doesn't like, that anybody who doesn't like anything that anybody has to say, all you have to do is just cry racism, and then it's the end for that person.
Well, then the other part of this story that supposedly the football team refused to play football.
And that was another thing that I wanted to hit on. It's like the poop doesn't hit the fan until, oh gosh, oh no, the football team is not going to play now. Now you've got to go.
But now wait a minute.
Football is the god in college campuses.
But now wait a minute. I know you're not much of a NASCAR fan, but there's this cat in NASCAR named Kyle Busch, and he is a whiner on steroids. If he finishes second in the race sometimes, I've seen him walk off into the trailer and pout without giving an interview. Now, supposedly it's mandatory in NASCAR for the top 5 finishers to make themselves available to the press. So I would simply, as the press, say, okay, buddy, you want to snub me. Next time you win a race, guess what? We're not going to interview you. I'll bet you the sponsors would come down on him like a ton of bricks. So all I got to say about this football team that doesn't want to play football and all the scouts that are out there wanting to draft these cats, fine, don't play football.
Yeah, but the problem is the college is worried that, this is going to be a loss of money for us.
Well, the boosters, the college boosters are obviously have an interest in this, but so what? They don't want to play football, go for it. And I'll bet you $1, I'll bet you they'll play football.
Oh, sure. They'll play after a couple.
I mean, even if you don't secede to their demands, I'm saying they're still playing football.
Yeah, but everybody has to bow down to this idiotic sport called football. That's what runs college campuses. It's football and indoctrination.
Well,
now.
it could be the basketball team. I don't think it's necessarily the sport. If it was the basketball team that didn't want to play, I'd have the same thing to say.
No, I agree. But it's just college football is just so huge in this country.
Well, sure.
Everybody is this slave on Saturday to the stupid football game, and it's turned schools into nothing more than sports teams in which players don't get paid at all. If they want to protest something, why don't they protest the fact that they're basically slaves working on the plantation of the football
Don't give
team.
them no ideas. Listen, we don't need any new ideas.
Yeah, well, it's amazing to me how socialism has had this resurgence in college campuses, and that has fueled this rise of Bernie Sanders among the Democratic ranks.
Feel the burn.
Yeah. It's just, I said this, I think 2 weeks ago, Bernie Sanders, I think, is like 70% dope and 30%, he's not too bad. He's a better alternative to Hillary.
Occasionally on my way home, I will do some shopping at the Harding Hills Hy-Vee.
Okay.
And they just happen to have a Bernie Sanders, what do we want to call it? A little place for Bernie Sanders.
It's toilet. Make a Bernie Sanders deposit.
Well, what do they call these presidential outlets where you go and you got a bunch of supporters there? I can't think of the terminology I want to use for it, but it's a pit stop for the Bernie Sanders supporters.
Okay.
And every time I walk by there's about 50 people out there smoking cigarettes, because they're feeling the burn. But they're all young, very young, dopey looking people.
Well, here's the thing. If you look at every Marxist communist revolution throughout history.
Campaign office or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
the terminology.
Thank you. Okay. So if you look throughout history at every Marxist communist revolution that has occurred, it's always occurred through a disenfranchised class like workers or with the young on education campuses. It's always been a youth movement that has gone and taken over and led to this Marxist takeover. Everyone throughout history has been this youth movement because communism preys on the inexperience and unintelligence of youth. It really does.
Well, it's just like that girl Neil Cavuto was interviewing. She's advocating for the government to pay for free college, DMAC style colleges for everyone. I don't even know if she wants to go to Harvard on the government dime. I don't know.
Right. So this devalues an actual college education. And it's ridiculous, looking at Help Wanted boards, seeing all these positions. Bachelor of Arts required, Bachelor of Arts required, Bachelor of Arts required. Well, what is a Bachelor of Arts? It's just it's a dang piece of paper that says, oh, you paid $25,000 to $30,000 to get this piece of paper and you still don't know what the heck you want to do with your life.
What was Neil Cavuto saying? Do you remember the part he was saying about if you collected all this money, it would add up to $1 trillion.
Right.
And that would pay for some government program for 3 years.
Right.
If you confiscated the wealth, all the wealth of the 1%, you got $1 trillion, and it pays for one government program for 3 years. Where's the money coming from? And the girl didn't have an answer.
Of course she doesn't have an answer because she doesn't know how to critically think because they don't teach how to critically think in schools anymore. They just teach kids how to, how they teach kids about homosexuality. They teach kids about how to be offended with racism and sexism. They don't teach people anything of value. And my gosh, the other one of the talking points that I wanted to raise. Think about this, Frank. These are the sick bastards that are going to be in the workforce in a few years. Think about when they get into the human resources position, especially the women.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be sexist. Human resource positions are basically positions that are created for women, in my experience,
Sure.
who don't have any other skills that are applicable. With
I readily admit I'm not an economist, but I have hammered it out with Bradshaw for years and years and years. And I said, buddy, I finally figured it out. There's nothing we can't afford if we don't tax the rich and print enough money to pay for it.
Uh-huh.
And I have seen the light. But there's really not enough money. There's not enough money for all these government programs.
No, of course not.
Even if you confiscated the wealth of all the 1%, it can't pay for this stuff.
Right. And if you confiscate the wealth of the 1%, then what's that going to do to the other people who want to try and get ahead? They're going to look at that and say, well, what's the point? You're just going to take my wealth. I'm not going to achieve anything.
Then you end up in socialism. There's inequities in both, but what you do is you decentivize people to work.
Exactly.
You decentivize people to produce.
And that's what these idiot college kids don't understand. They can't reasonably come to this conclusion that socialism that their hero Bernie Sanders is pushing throughout history, each and every time, socialism has done nothing but propel an oligarchy. It's not going to be a 1%, it's going to be a 0.5%.
But wait, Bernie honeymooned in Russia.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. He honeymooned in Russia, so he obviously knows better than each and every one of us. Looks like Drudge just updated 100 people dead in Paris, victims of Muslims let in for political correctness.
Apparently, if they weren't wearing masks, they weren't planning on anybody identifying them. So it looks like they're out to kill everybody.
Yeah, they don't care.
If they're not afraid for their face to be seen, they don't want no witnesses.
These are the refugees who are bringing the horrors of their crap religion into Paris. But they have to be accepted. And if you're Christian, then you're going to be decried. You're going to be absolutely hated. If you're wearing a crucifix, Jennifer Lawrence, the stupid Hollywood actress, is going to say that you might as well be carrying a pitchfork. It's just...
Well, can we get a hashtag to fight this some way?
That's really what it's all about.
We could just get a hashtag going. Maybe Michelle Obama could get behind a hashtag and we can just end this.
Right, if she's not done chowing down on something. All right, I hear music, so we're going to cut to our final break. You're watching Frankly Speaking Live here on I almost said #1.com. We'll be back in a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. This is Dave Kanyuk, riding shotgun with me, Frank Holzhauser. 100 plus dead because of a terrorist Muslim rampage in Paris. Reuters is still not calling it a terrorist attack. It's just gunmen.
Wonder if this is any significance that it's Friday the 13th.
Wow, I did not think of that. That is, And speechless. I am speechless. That is a really good point, actually. That is an excellent point. Reuters is not calling it a terrorist attack. Political correctness run amok. There was a story that was out. This was Rasmussen stating little support for punishing global warming foes. Global warming, this is staying with the political correct and totalitarian bent of the so-called left, who I'm not going to call progressives. They are nothing more than regresses because they want to regress back to feudalism. But apparently there have been calls now there have been calls by scientists. Let me preface this. All right. Scientists ask Obama to prosecute global warming skeptics. So if you have an opinion about global warming that doesn't fall in line with what the oligarchs tell you to think, then they want to prosecute you.
Well, the debate is over.
The science on global warming is settled. So subtle that 20 climate scientists are asking President Barack Obama to prosecute people who disagree with them on the science behind man-made global warming. Scientists from several universities and research centers even asked Obama to use the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, to prosecute groups that have knowingly deceived the American public, the American people, about the risks of climate change as a means to forestall America's response to climate change, which is a totally hypocritical thing to do, considering that that international climate change panel. Remember back in 2009 when those emails were hacked, and it turned out that there were all these discussions about how to manipulate data and everything, and it's basically been proven that global warming data has all been a fraud. So they should be prosecuted using RICO.
Would you agree that this global warming is morphed into a religion?
It has taken on religious elements, yes, because it's like it's heresy if you say anything.
We're told in Scripture that anything we hold in esteem over Christ, above God, is an idol, and we're guilty of idolatry.
Well, that's how I feel about football.
So we have worship of the gift, while the atheists ignore the gift giver.
Mm-hmm.
We fall down and worship this planet. We worship the resources on it that we can't use because we got to make the place pristine. And so this thing is morphed into a religion, and these people that deny religion and deny God are in essence worshiping the earth.
Right. It's spiritualism, Gaia worship, basically. Pantheism. Thank you very much. So this report from Rasmussen saying that there's little support for punishing global warming foes. Global warming advocates are calling for the prosecution of groups who disagree with them, and New York State has taken it a step further by investigating ExxonMobil for refusing to play ball with the popular scientific theory. But 68% of likely U.S. voters oppose the government investigating and prosecuting scientists and others, including major corporations, who question global warming. A new Rasmussen report's national telephone survey finds that 17% favor such prosecutions, 15% are undecided. So the fact that you can find 17% of the people in this country, the fact that only 2/3 are staunchly opposed to this, is frightening in and of itself. It shouldn't be 17%. It should be like 0.0001%. So it shows you how totalitarianism is taking hold. Just over 1 in 4 Democrats, however, favor prosecuting those who don't agree with global warming. Only 11% of Republicans and 12% of voters not affiliated with either major party agree. So how we can find 11% of Republicans who would be willing to go along with this is astounding in and of itself. But 27%, that's a full third of Democrats are in favor of prosecuting. I don't know, Frank, what do you have to say on that?
Well, you're bullied. You're bullied into believing something that you really don't believe. Mm-hmm. And they're trying, it's like Rush Limbaugh says, they talk this stuff and they treat other people like everybody should believe this. Mm-hmm. They can't understand that the rest of the country, which they consider flyover country, if you know, from D.C. to L.A. nonstop, and the rest of us is flyover, don't think like this.
Right.
And they try to fluff up their feathers and pump themselves up that this is just common knowledge. Everybody should agree with
right.
this.
I think this is Sun Tzu's art of war that's being put into play. Make your enemy think that you are greatly that you're much more powerful than you actually are. So they're trying to put on this veil of authority that the science is settled behind global warming and there will be no dissension from the ranks. When in actuality, it's the sun. Climate changes because of the sun.
But dissension is part of our fabric of government. Mm-hmm. Our government was based on dissension.
That's just it, though. They're trying to use this to tear down all forms of government.
But don't they understand eventually they're cutting their own throats?
They don't care. They think that, again, this goes back to what you were saying earlier, the ends justify the means, because they are trying to tear down a democratic republic that is the United States of America and build up a totalitarian one world government that they think is going to be this grand utopia of enlightenment and everything. But it's not. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. It always, when you have an oligarchy that runs everything, you turn into what North Korea is right now. And I want to end on a little bit of a funnier story real quick before we're done. But here's one. Kim Jong-un, the oligarch, the leader of North Korea, he always travels with a personal toilet. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un is not exactly known as a man of the people. After all, this is the guy who had his own uncle shot because he somehow ran afoul of his nephew's views. That's why the news coming out this morning that Kim doesn't use public restrooms when he travels around the country, but instead uses portable toilets built into all of his large vehicles is not really that surprising. But it does speak to the level at which Kim is kept inside an ivory tower within the regime. According to the Daily NK, Kim is never that far away from a toilet. The restrooms are not only in Kim Jong-un's personal train, but whatever small or mid-sized cars he is traveling with, and even in special vehicles that are designed for mountainous terrain or snow. A source close to the escort command who guards the leader told the Daily NK. There are multiple vehicles within the convoy so that people cannot tell which one he is in, and there is a separate car that acts as his restroom.
I am the author of this joke.
Okay.
Do you know what you call a Korean with a hemorrhoid?
I don't know.
Kim's bung is ill.
Oh, gosh. Dang it, Frank. Anyway, so the point is that these people, these moron kids on this campus who think Marxism and socialism and all of this is cool, who want to take political correctness to the extreme and stifle free speech and set up this authoritarian government, this is what it turns into. It turns into this hellhole where you have one guy who has a cult of personality surrounding it, and you have a few people at the top. These people are like I said, they're the 0.5% because they take even more than the 1%. And then the rest of the people are left starving.
But in socialism, you go back to the French Revolution. There was 150,000 elites that lived on the backs of millions. There's always inequities in every system, whether it's capitalism or socialism.
Yes.
But the difference is in capitalism, if I grow a crop and I sell that crop for profit, I also have the right to donate that crop to food banks.
Right.
I have the right and the privilege to do that. Under communism, there's no such ability to share.
Exactly. It all goes to the state, and then the state keeps it for itself. And in every instance of communism, does not distribute to the people. I think the only instance of actual communism that has ever really worked was the religious group known as the Shakers in Pennsylvania back in the 1800s, and that was because it was a small commune. It was a community. But even that was it was based off of religion, which communism is not. Communism is total deification of the state. And this was freer than any communist society, because in a communist society, in a Marxist society, you're not allowed to lead that society. But at least in the Shaker Village, you would have situations where you'd have a situation. I'm sorry, this was in Kentucky. You would have situations where you're a farmer, winter's coming, crop doesn't look that good, wife doesn't look that good. So you're saying, hey, you know what? So let's roll down to the Shaker Village for the winter.
Communism and socialism just provides no incentive.
But here's the thing. Because it preys off of the utopian ideals of the young and inexperienced, it seems like this bright, shining ideal on a hill. And with that, I think we're probably coming up to the end of our broadcast, although I don't really hear any. Oh, there it is. All right. So anyway, that's it for Frankly Speaking Live. Thank you, Frank, for joining us. Thank you, Maddie, for producing. We'll see you, Lord willing, next week. Have a good week, everyone. Good night.